I have returned! Rejoice, my children. I was on vacation, but I am now back. And along with that, the first stream of the new year. I'm playing Five Nights at Freddy's sister location today, so come check me out at twitch.tv/Reaconteur to say hi for the first stream of January, the first stream of 2026, and of course the Friday streams are fucking back! And of course, make sure to subscribe, since only about 20% of the people watching right now are actually subscribed. And along with that, just want to make one more quick little announcement. I know I didn't drop it last month like I was supposed to, but this week, or within the next 7 days, I will be dropping my mini Christmas album, which is going to be 3 just different Christmas songs, right? So if you want to hear those, buy a YouTube membership at any tier, and we'll continue with the monthly song covers. Now let's get straight into it. Alright, so first of all, before I go into some stuff, I want to recorrect some stuff that I did incorrectly in my last lore video. The first of which is the Lord Regent, which I forgot to mention. He is innately aware that the Vow of Iron is some kind of simulation. Now, there's really no potential explanation that's given to us, but there are some potential explanations for this that we could theorize on, even though we don't really get anything. Maybe the Lord Regent is so powerful that even his non-physical traces are capable of transcending reality, or at least the false reality that is the simulation that is in the Vow of Iron. It's just kind of like weird meta stuff that honestly really isn't that important, but this is supposed to lead into what is eventually going to become a real in-game Pathfinder version Lord Regent boss fight, which the devs have confirmed will be coming. Anyway, recently I had some fans DM me some screenshots and I did some more digging, but oh my god, this is proof that the Deepwoken developers just need to really stop talking about lore and actually finalize and implement it into the game, because I've already talked about this in various videos, but I want to cover it in depth here because it honestly is a pretty big problem that I think isn't stated enough. Like, this is just funny. Isn't the second prophet the Deepwoken of Bloodrend? Yeah. Dude, he's not even paying attention. This is Reaconteur. This is the owner of the game, and he actually had to re-retcon that in a chat with a screenshot that was taken by Hermes Metal because Reaconteur just accidentally confirmed something that wasn't true. And which, if you don't know why this is important, it's important because it implies a few things. It implies either Bloodrend is a naturally occurring attunement, which in Deepwoken, a Deepwoken is essentially an ascended person who intakes part of a god in relation to an attunement. However, this is only possible with attunements that there are gods for, which means only naturally occurring non-man-made attunements, because the man-made attunements that we have in-game are Bloodrend and Iron Sing, right? Or in Bloodrend's case, should we say woman-made? So Bloodrend isn't a natural attunement because it was created and invented by the second prophet. Now, my personal theory, this is kind of unrelated, but I think that Bloodrend is probably just like a branch of Iron Sing that controls the iron in your blood. But, you know, that's irrelevant to the point I'm making right now. That's for another video. The point is, if Reaconteur didn't go ahead and retcon this, which, by the way, he only did in private, so if Hermes Metal didn't share this screenshot, then we just have new fake lore. And then that would imply that either, 1, the creation of an attunement results in the creation of a matching god, or specifically Bloodrend is actually a natural attunement. Regardless, this is why the Deepwoken devs need to stop talking about major parts of the lore in the Discord and actually draft, write, and implement the lore into the game, because the vast majority of Deepwoken lore is sadly gotten through Discord messages, which is why I think Deepwoken needs a lore team that I should be on because I'm good at writing. Unrelated, right? Anyway, Reaconteur also just isn't much of a Lord Regent fan. In fact, he just doesn't really like the character at all, but that's kind of unrelated because what I wanted to go against was some stuff that he said from like 2023 that was pretty dumb. And the statement was, Lord Regent on the throne versus Pleatsky is a good fight. So, how? Like, based on much more recent remarks, we now know that Pleatsky is just like not a fair match for Lord Regent on the throne. Like, Maestro Evangard with his Tempest Eye active is stronger than Regent. We know that, right? And he's supposed to be about even maybe a tiny bit weaker than Pleatsky. But, you know, the only downside to that is that he can't maintain his Tempest Eye permanently, the way like Pleatsky has his power constantly. And we've also been told that Maestro Evangard would definitely beat the Lord Regent in a fight. However, he doesn't due to various reasons, which I've covered before, so I won't be going over here. But yeah. So that just kind of shows off the inconsistency in Deepwoken's lore, because the devs keep making statements over Discord, and I'm pretty sure Reaconteur is not the person that writes like the Lord Regent's character and all the lore behind that. But then he went ahead and made a statement about it in 2023, which was just like, I mean, that was 3 years ago at this point. Well, more like 2, but you get the point, right? Now, with that being said, I think the biggest problem is kind of the fact that like the community kind of takes Reaconteur and all the other developers' words on certain characters a little bit too deep. Because one of the things that he said specifically, which I'm going to quote this word for word, was that he's strong, but my interpretation of the Maestro has always been that he's one of the most skilled weapon masters in the world, but that doesn't necessarily make him good against some hacks, magic abuser like Regent, which was a statement he made made in 2024. Now, the thing about this is, first of all, it's his interpretation of a character in his game. It doesn't mean that he is saying that for sure, because he's not the person writing like Maestro or Lord Regent, but it's how he sees those characters, because you guys gotta remember, even though he owns the game, he doesn't necessarily dictate literally everything that happens with every character within it. So I think that people also kind of use statements like this a little bit inconsistently, which, you know, if it were not said in the Discord and it were stated in game, then it would be a lot more consistent, because we'd have this which is stated in game, which works and matches with everything else stated in the game. But instead we've got stuff like this, which is done through Discord, and then stuff said by other developers, which contradicts it, and then we've got all that stuff that just doesn't match up very well. And as far as that goes, here's a list of like characters that Reaconteur had a hand in writing on that he said. So it would be Zaire, the Fourth Prophet, Dralisair, Pleatsky, Maestro Avantgarde Rest, Chud Steele, and Claris, which, to be fair, yeah, he had a hand in writing these characters, but we don't know how deep that goes per character, because yeah, he had a hand in writing them, but that doesn't necessarily mean he dictates everything they do. That doesn't even mean he did a majority of the work. He probably just influenced some of the work done for these characters, and even if he wrote the entirety of these characters, he could just not know what he's gonna do with them next. But it was a long time ago, but that's kind of still not making up for the point that, like, he shouldn't really be doing that, because that's just a huge inconsistency that had to get re-retconned again. And as for more recent statements in relation to Valve Iron, or just anything in general, one of the more important ones is that Dralisair is in fact a Deepwoken. Now, this confirms two things, one of which isn't really that important. First of all, Dralisair is a real person. In the lore, nobody really sees Dralisair, so the game kind of treats him like an urban legend and a figurehead or representative rather than an actual person. Which is interesting, but it doesn't make sense as far as Deepwoken lore goes, so I mean, for all real perspectives, we could have just assumed he was real. What is important, though, is that we now know that Dralisair is likely the Deepwoken of Thundercall. It's not confirmed he's the Deepwoken of Thundercall, but he was a Thundercall user, and he's a Deepwoken, so yeah. Anyway, he was also told to have fought off the Godstorm, which is likely, or at least what I think it is an invasion akin to the taking over of the city in the sky from Etheron. I think that the Godstorm is some sort of invasion like that, except from the god of Thundercall, which we don't know the name of, but that really isn't known either. But the funny part is that Reaconteur didn't even think that this was unknown information, so he accidentally leaked lore that wasn't necessarily meant to be known yet. Why? Because he's talking about it on a Discord instead of actually implementing into the game. He thought that it was known information that Dralisair was a Deepwoken, which, I mean, funny enough, because that also just confirms he's not the person writing the character, but he also made another statement on them. Because it's supposed to be kind of like a mystery whether Dralisair is even a real person or even a currently alive person, but now we know that he's not only currently alive, we know that he's also the Deepwoken of Thundercall, which wasn't supposed to be stated. Which I think that's just kind of funny, honestly. It's just so messy, man. Like, you guys really gotta, like, just put your stuff in the game. Stop talking about it over Discord. I'm gonna say that a lot in this video. Now, this is my new favorite addition to the lore. It's not really important, but someone asked, what exactly does Maestro's Tempest Eye do? And Reaconteur said, at a basic level, it's just being extra perceptive of movement based on airflow. Which, okay, he was born with it, he has it, it's Gojo. It's 6 eyes from Jujutsu Kaisen. If you replace the word airflow with cursed energy, it's literally Gojo's 6 eyes. With that being said, though, I would like to say that that doesn't even make sense given the abilities that we've seen, seeing as how Tempest Eye, sure, it'll make him more perceptive of movement based on airflow. Like, maybe that's just one of the things that it does. But at a basic level, I wouldn't say that's all it does, because when he activates it on you in game, he just cleaves your head off faster than you can process it. So I think it's a little bit more than that. But yeah, Maestro's basically the Gojo of Deepwoken, and that's now confirmed. The only other important information he dropped in recent time was that the Ministry's main base of operation, where the rest of the prophets likely reside, or at least some of them do, is an island found deep within the Void Sea. And with the unconfirmed but planned Void Sea update, which is supposed to come with a number of content additions to the Void Sea, it is possible that they could maybe do a Void Sea update along with an origin for the Ministry. Now, this is not really something that's guaranteed to happen because of one of the things, I think it was Archmage, but it was maybe Reaconteur that said this, but the devs aren't completely sure about adding an entire origin for the Ministry because they're kind of like the bad guys and they aren't sure about adding that for lore reasons because they don't necessarily want the player to be on the bad side of things because, you know, they're trying to destroy the world, but you as the player are constantly doing things to prevent that, like fighting Etheron, going down to layer 2, and eventually going down to layer 3 once that all comes out. Which is already really complicated, because then what about like contractor, because the best thing we could say is, oh, you're using Zaire the Fourth Prophet, Lord Regent, you're using him for power, and that's why you're a contractor. But then what about Voidwalker? They're also pretty bad guys, right? You could be a Voidwalker contractor and you're basically entirely evil, but then they don't want to add the Ministry origin. Like, I get what you guys are doing, but it's kind of just really messy. I really think the developers need some sort of lore team and a way to actually organize their shit, because we've got devs making statements on characters they don't actively write, we've got confusion and miscommunication, and we've got 90% of the lore spread through a Discord server. I think that the Vow of Iron did some good through exposition via NPCs, with certain NPCs only existing to provide lore dialogue and world building, but the main game doesn't have enough of that, which is why, while the game does have good lore and probably the best world in any Roblox game ever written, if you weren't in the Discord server, you'd get basically none of it. Like, if you didn't watch videos on Deepwoken and Deepwoken's lore, and you weren't in the Discord, would you even know 90% of the characters who are important in lore but unmentioned? Specifically Ministry Prophets and NPCs like Dralis Heir. The first prophet being the Deepwoken of Shadowcast, I don't think is ever mentioned in game. Dralis Heir and everything he's done, in fact, you know, the term Deepwoken, which it's never even said in game. A Deepwoken is a person who consumes part of a drowned god and ascends to, like, demigodhood within that attunement. This is never once said in game. The closest we get to it is where Plume says that Plitsky lays claim to his prize in Layer 3 of the Depths, which was a lava flower of the Coral Fiend. But he didn't call him a Deepwoken. You wouldn't even know Deepwoken was an actual word if you weren't involved in the lore parts of the community. So please, devs, get a lore team. Organize your lore. Let me head the lore team or something, because I'm good at writing something 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 something. I'm so good at writing something something. You guys like that display of my good writing skills using the word something 4 times in one sentence? Sorry, but just start putting your lore in the game, bro. People shouldn't have to join the Discord or watch videos like this to understand your game's lore. I just think that's kind of stupid. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I'll be dropping my mini Christmas album within the next week, so buy a YouTube membership if you want to hear that. It'll be 3 different Christmas songs. Make sure to subscribe. Shout out to YouTube members of tier 2 or higher: Green, Brick, Goobka, Highcard, Philip, Delusional Mo, Elstern, Fun Guns, V. Corey, Axelor, Broccoli, Carlia the Witch, Akios Sugikuni, and welcome new member who actually joined like 2 weeks ago, but I've been on vacation. I'm back though, Burger135. I love you, Burger. Welcome to the Reaconteur YouTube family, and I hope you all have an amazing day, and goodbye.